Hello patrons, Nolanium here with your first basic introductory lesson into digital art with Procreate for the iPad. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today is line quality. A lot of the drawings you see me work on typically have really bold line work, really sharp dynamic swooping lines, angular lines, and so we're going to kind of kick things off by teaching you a little bit about how to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you some native brushes to Procreate that would be very helpful to get you to where you need to be. I'm going to inking right here under my brush library, which you can access by hitting this guy right here with your Apple Pencil. I'm going to go down to what's called dry ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my different variations that I've made to the dry brush. So if you're thinking about how you want to set it up, you want to set up your spacing at 1%, your streamline at 25%, your jitter at 25%, your fall off should be none. And if you go to taper right here, keep it at default, have your size set to max, your opacity to max, your pressure to max, and your tip to 82%. Tip animation should be on. Touch taper, size max, opacity max, tip completely turned down. And that should give you the exact same type of line that I put down when I use the dry ink brush. Okay? Dry ink brush is a brush that I use quite often with a lot of my drawings, so this is a great way for you guys to kind of get an intro into line quality. So we're going to do some exercises, and these exercises are designed to help make your line quality the best it can possibly be. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to set my brush to midway, right in the middle here. Opacity is completely turned up. I'm going to practice some thin lines, just like that. And I'm going to see how thin I can get them without turning down the tip size manually. So I did a bunch of thin lines there. Now I'm going to kind of turn my wrist a little bit, and I'm going to do some thin lines going horizontally. This is a great way for you to train yourself to move your wrist around and to capture different areas of the drawing without having to do one of these guys, because that can be pretty tedious after a while. And I'm going to do some vertical thin lines. And as you can see, I'm just kind of flicking my wrist. Not really doing a lot with my actual hand. I'm using my wrist to do a lot of the movements. So we got our thin lines down here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a thick line exercise. So by applying a little more pressure, I'm going to make my thick lines. You see how much of a difference that is? This is when you really start to realize how much control you have over the Apple Pencil. Now, I would recommend doing a lot of these, maybe even filling up an entire page with just line work like this, because it's really about building the comfortability with the Apple Pencil. That's what's really going to get you to some nice dynamic lines. Now, this is where things get a little crazy, a little tricky. So I'm going to work with you guys really, really hard on this. These are called dagger strokes. A dagger stroke is when you take your line from very thick to very thin, like that. And typically, a great way to do a dagger stroke is to do it as quickly as you can. And then what I also tell people to do is do them from different directions. You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down, up, down. This is a great way for you to learn line control. Okay, a lot of the lines that I will draw, and just to give you an example, like let's say I'm drawing someone's arm, I'm utilizing dagger strokes quite a bit in that process. You see that almost every line that I'm placing on here is a dagger stroke. So this is the importance of dagger strokes. This is what makes a dagger stroke essential to making a really cool digital drawing. So let's get rid of our arm here. It's pretty cool, but we're all about doing line exercises right now. So I've got my dagger strokes. Like I said, I'd recommend filling up an entire page with these until you feel very comfortable. That's the most important part about this process, is you feeling comfortable with the lines you're putting down. Now, moving on from these dagger strokes, this is where things get a little tricky, but it's a great exercise for training you how to move your hand when you're doing digital art. These are called dagger stroke pinwheels. And what I mean by that is I do a series of dagger strokes forming a pinwheel like that. If it helps you, you can also make a dot. You can zoom in a little bit if you'd like. But you see how quickly I'm kind of moving my wrist and my hand? This is a great way to have you loosen up. This is a great way to teach you how to move your wrists when doing digital art without having to do one of these guys. And once again, I'd recommend doing an entire page of these. They're very helpful. Now, the last thing I'm going to leave you with line control is, this is when you know you've truly become a master of line control, is we're going to do cursive L's. Now, if you don't know cursive, you're about to learn a little bit right now. With the cursive L's, I go up thin, down thick, up thin, down thick, up thin, down thick. This teaches you control. This teaches you how to be uniform with your strokes, and it's a great way for you to truly learn how to control your line work without having to use line smoothing or any tools like that. So this is where we're at right now for basic fundamentals. I showed you my settings for my dry ink pen, which I use most of the time. I've shown you thin lines and thick lines. Please, please, please do a bunch of those. That's the only way you're going to get better at it. I showed you dagger strokes, which are incredibly important, going from left to right, right to left, down to up, up to down. Once you feel good about these, this is where you can start doing pinwheels. Pinwheels are shorter dagger strokes, and you're going to go all the way around. And then you're going to cap it off with doing some L's. Now, this is not only a great way to learn your lines, it's also a great way to warm up before any drawing, and I would highly recommend it. So patrons, thanks for joining me for this lesson. Bronze level, please practice as much as you can, and even if you are silver or gold, try doing this a little bit before every drawing. It'll help loosen you up. Thanks, guys.